If I stayed in New York, I would miss home. If I came home, I would miss New York. This is the price you pay if you have had the privilege of going to live and work in another country. It's the price I knew I would pay. I'm lucky because I stay in touch with some of my friends in New York. We email a lot, sometimes we call, and now that I've discovered Skype, they've been saying, let's Skype. See, from now on, I'm going to be Skyping all the time.
Oh, that's good.
So yes, I do, but I knew I would. And so it doesn't come as a surprise. I was there last year. I didn't go this year, and next year I'm going to North Carolina, and I think I'll make a stop in New York. Okay. So each time I get invited by a university in the States, I make a point that I stay a week or two with friends in New York.
That's a good opportunity. And now, do you hear any cliches about Germany or German people?
Do I do what, sorry?
Cliches.
I lost you there.
Stereotypes?
Or stereotypes.
About Germany.
Add more. No, I'm reading something here. I didn't get your question. Could you repeat it, please?
Did you hear any stereotypes about Germany or Germans?
Do I hear anything about German?
Yeah, as a stereotype, as a cliche.
No, I often use Germany as a missed opportunity for South Africa. I think that after the end of apartheid, we should have had a Marshall Plan. Really, I think we should have stopped and thought, and then because the whole world wanted to help South Africa then, remember? And we should have had a better plan about how to rebuild. We didn't, and we are paying the price now. You've heard about the students and hashtag, fees must fall, roads must fall, everything is falling. Nobody's saying hashtag this must be built and this must come up. It's all about falling.
Through your book and through a bit of background research, we know a bit about the apartheid era, but we don't really know what the current problems are. Is there still a lot to do? Or is it a rainbow nation now?
The rainbow is bleeding. No, it's not a rainbow nation. I'm happy apartheid is gone. And I think most people would say that. But the promise of the new era has not materialized. And now people are beginning to be very angry. But the first poem I ever read publicly, I have one book of poetry, it's called Please Take Photographs. The first poem I ever read publicly in a cafe in New York is called Fear of Change. It was written at the end of 93, beginning of 94, before the first big election, vote, when we all voted as one nation. And I wrote that poem because I had lived in New York and I had seen that political change, which happened there decades ago, did not bring social change. And what we were looking forward to in South Africa was political change, which has come. Social change, In my street, when I couldn't live where I live now, I lived in Guguletu. In that street, in 1994, there was a young man, about 21 years old. I looked at Joseph, his name. 21 years, I couldn't see what would change in that young man's life. 21, he had had 3 years of schooling. What can change in a life with only 3 years of schooling? How is he going to suddenly participate meaningfully in the democracy? I don't see it. And that's the tragedy of this country, that when we came to democracy in 94, about 75, if not more, % of people who look like me, with either completely or semi-literate. And that was the design of apartheid. In the mid-80s, this is how much the government was spending on the education of the children in the country. The rand then was stronger than the dollar. 480 rand a year for one white child. 280 rand a year for one mixed race or colored child or Indian child. On a child who looked like me, an African child, 28 rand. 480, 280, 28. Today, when the people who are in power, some of the parliamentarians mess up, they don't do right, when they don't seem to have the skills or the aptitude for what they're doing. Sometimes I think to myself, well, what do you expect from 28 rand a year? Education. But that does not excuse being crooks and stealing. That has nothing to do with one's level of education. People should be honest when they do a job, especially politicians.
We could, with this topic alone, I guess, talk another hour. Yeah. We have a few more questions prepared with regards to your book. Would it be okay if we changed to mother? Is that all right with you?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. So I should continue now. Okay. So we have done a little research on you, especially Nicholas has done it, and from our results we have found out that you and the protagonist Mandisa have a lot in common. For example, you two grew up in Guguleto, you worked as a domestic servant, you have, I think, 3 children. If at all, how much of the book is inspired by your own life and your own experiences?
I wouldn't use the word inspired, but what I can say is, if I had not known that mother when we were children, I think our lives went separately when we were about 14, before 16, when she became a young mother, very young mother. If I hadn't played with her then, if I hadn't known her then, I doubt I would ever have written Mother to Mother. But the realization, when I came back in April '94 for the elections, I stayed here for 6 weeks in South Africa. I was at the airport going back to New York, and a friend who's been a friend since we were in grade 2, we were talking about the elections and what, the current situation. Then those 4 young men who murdered Amy Biehl were on trial, and we talked about that. And then she says to me, one of them is Nontutuzelo's son. Which Nontutuzelo? Between the 2 of us, we only know one Nontutuzelo. So I knew which Nontutuzelo. But I was so surprised, so shocked that somebody I knew, somebody with whom I had played as a child, could be a mother of a killer. And at that moment, although I complain a lot about my life, but at moments like that, I am sobered. And I start thinking, geez, I have had a great life, given where I came from, given my beginnings.
We could really, at least I could really understand your book better now, because it really makes sense. Thank you.
Yes, and then I felt, why am I so lucky? And I knew her, and I knew her. She was such a zestful spirit as a young woman, up to age 12, 14 when I knew her. And I just felt that maybe my life has gone the way it has, so that I can talk to situations like that. Mm-hmm. I can be, because I knew what in my culture she would do, but she probably has very little English, and Amy's mother no closer. But I wanted Amy's mother to know why her child died in Guguletu. Yes, those 4 young men were held responsible. They were even jailed. But all South Africans, black and white, killed Amy Biehl by allowing race hate to go to the levels it had reached in 1976. When we don't deal with our problems, tragedies such as that will happen. It wasn't just those 4 men, young men. It was all of us for allowing race hate to reach those levels.
Did you also meet the mother of Amy Biehl?
Linda Biehl.
Yeah, because
I didn't. I didn't when I wrote the book. And I'm a little bit of a coward. I did all the research. I didn't contact Amy's mother. I didn't contact Nomtutu Zelo, my former friend. I just wrote the book. I felt, for 2 years I didn't write the book, but I just felt the sadness, the terrible sadness of the killer's mother, of the woman I used to know, how she must feel. For 2 years, and in the end, I had to say something to Amy's mother. And I wrote the book. I went to a workshop, started writing, finished the book. And then when I was in Cape Town in July for final edit, I knew the book was coming out in September. I knew, coward as I am, I was more scared of the book going to the shops without Amy's mother knowing about it. At that point, I made contact. That's only when and then it was a good meeting. I was very scared, as you can imagine. Amy's father was still alive then. He asked me, I didn't meet Amy's mother, then I met the father. And after talking to, I threw my 4 books at him. I'm a writer. Here are my 4 books. And I've written about this. And he only asked for that they should get a copy. And I said, I'm sure the publisher will give you a copy. And I took his card. And that, could I ask the publisher to bring the publication date forward? Instead of September, the book was published on the 25th of August, the anniversary of Amy's death. And I said, I'll ask the publisher. I knew she wouldn't mind. And then he said, could we go and grab a cup of coffee? No, I'm sorry, I have another meeting. And I ran. I didn't have another meeting, I lied. I just felt very uncomfortable.
do you know if Linda Biehl read the book, and did you know how she reacted if she did?
Who? Amy's mother?
Yeah, did she read the
other
book?
mother?
Yeah.
Well, I did give her the books too, but she is not somebody who probably, I've never heard from her about the books. But the book became a play later on. And it showed at one of the big, one of our bigger theaters, the Baxter Theater, attached to UCT. And she was invited to the premiere, or the day before it opened. She wept all the time and she couldn't come to the premiere. She said she found it too hard. Amy's mother, when we first met, she said she couldn't finish the book. The second time, this was in New York, we met again, she gave me a hug, and she said she finished the book, and these are her words: it helped me better understand.
I think that's all you can ask for, right?
And that was the only reason I wrote the book. If only she could understand why that terrible thing happened.
Your book might have had quite an impact on her starting her foundation in South Africa and talking to the murderers, actually, didn't she?
Yeah, there is an Amy Biehl Foundation in South Africa and in the United States. And at first, the Biehls used to come here, then Amy's father died, and Amy's mom has been coming less and less. And I read in the newspaper last week, the South African organization is now called the Amy Foundation. So that the one in the States is the Amy Biehl Foundation. The one in South Africa has changed name to just the Amy Foundation. But the work it does is still the same. They are working with young people at risk so that they will not descend into criminal activity.
Wonderful.
They help
That's
with
great.
after-school programs, recreation programs, you know, a lot of things. They do very good work.
That is
But to do that, of course, they depend on donations and volunteers and things like that.
But do you think that your book had an impact on the founding of this foundation?
No. You know, the foundation was founded when the book came. The foundation was already almost in place because Amy's parents came here and they saw the need in the country. They saw the poverty, the abject poverty that leads. I'm not saying all poor people are criminals, but where there is poverty, crime thrives. So they started the foundation. Yes, they were very supportive of my book, and when they were asked Amy died in 03, in 93, in 94, in 94, they were asked December 10th, I think it's Human Rights Day at the United Nations, they were asked to address the General Assembly on Human Rights Day. They in turn asked the United Nations to include me on the panel on human rights in Southern Africa. So we became really, when Amy's father died a couple of years later, I was one of they asked me, and I was one of the people who delivered an eulogy at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., you know, when he was memorized.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. So we have found out now that your motivation to write this book was to make the other mother understand better, right? So is there also a special message you want to send other readers, like us, for example, with this book?
Yeah, you know, this is about when there is something happens that breaks the peace, whatever it is, between people. The idea is that when we have had that kind of split as human beings, we can't live in anger, we can't live in war. We must try as quickly as humanly possible to re-establish harmony. The play has been invited to more places than, you know, I have been. It even went to one of the Caribbean islands, can't remember which one now, because they said, here they are, people of an island, everybody knows everybody else, but drugs came to the island and the young people are killing one another, and they needed mother to come there to start the dialogue. Sometimes the fighting is about race or about culture or within families, between generations, and the idea of let's sit down and talk. Or if there is a party that was definitely the party that created the problem, that, you know, it's incumbent on us when we have wronged somebody to gather ourselves and go there and apologize. That's our duty. When you have wronged somebody, it is your duty to say, I am sorry.
I thought it was interesting you create so much understanding for the situation of young people in South Africa through the book, but you put words into Mandisa's mouth of describing her son as an animal, like so many comparisons to animals. Why did you choose to do that?
I felt that's how she would feel. You know, when you raise a child, you give birth to a child, you raise a child, and they go and do something like that, you don't know this person.
Yeah.
You know, in the young people, if one of your siblings, your brother, for no reason, not in self-defense, If you went home and your mom said to you, your brother killed somebody, would you know that brother? Would he be the same person like the one you had dinner with? You don't recognize this person. In your grief, in your anger, in your bewilderment, you want to know what changed. First you blame yourself, what did I do wrong? And then you get angry because you know the whole world is going to blame you. You know, when there is something like that, human beings are all conditioned the same way. We are programmed to feel sorry for the victim side of the tragedy. We don't give any thought to the other side. And when we do, we condemn the other side. You see? And the other side knows this because they have been there too. They know they are human. And they know that we condemn them if we even think about it. And so they lash out because of this person, this thing that has brought me all this shame, all this grief. What did I not do to you? But in the book too, when she first understands that he is the killer, she, you know, in the play, she goes like this way, but in the end, they are in one big heap, both crying, because even in her grief, there is always love. Even in grief, you will hate your child, but finally, even in that bewilderment, you will know the inescapable fact that this is my child. I don't know why he did this, but in the end, this is all he has is me as the mother. So that is something you cannot wash away, even when you don't, even when you feel like killing your child for what he has done. He still remains your child. And so you say, I don't know you, I don't know what made you do this, but you will have your child eventually.
We also learned about the Black Consciousness movement with Sindiwe Magona, and how he said that one problem is that there is a process of dehumanization going on, and that black people have been told that they are lesser humans or something like that. And we wondered whether there is some reference to that in the book too.
Because we found more examples where Mandisa calls humans animals than just her son. For example, with the group where she compares them to an amova, or where she compares people to donkeys or something like that. We found it all over the book.
It's our language, you know, when you are naughty or when you do something, you know, language becomes ugly. But to come to the point of internalizing the hurt is inescapable. No one can escape the teachings of one society. You may not agree with it, but it will come into your very blood. If you are told consistently you are inferior, you are no good, your self-esteem is affected. You may fight it, you may do things, but it is there. And it comes out in behavior. Some people overcompensate. Some people drown in it. But it is something we carry with us all the time. Nobody escapes it. Nobody.
I have a very philosophical question, and may you have an answer to this. What would you say is the meaning of life for you?
Wow.
As far as I can think about my life, I think now I'm at a point where I just hope I can go on sharing of myself, writing and giving talks when I'm asked to, because I do believe, I look at my life and I look at lives such as mine, lives transformed out of poverty. I'm not Mrs. Rockefeller, don't get me wrong, but I am not as poor, I'm not poor, and I will never be as poor as I was in my 20s. And so, my take is that poverty is not an incurable disease. But, you know, in South Africa, for instance, I know there's a lot of work done in the States too, to try and overcome poverty so that people, but for help. You know, I once did this to my minister. She's a very good woman, but she was giving money to somebody who was standing at the robots at the street lights like this. And I went like this, what are you doing? Because if you give money to a beggar, the beggar may have that money for the day, but that life is not changed. I'm against people giving paupers money or, you know, that kind of thing. What we need to do is that as a society is really work on our policies and the working out of those policies, translating them into reality so that poor people don't have to be begging, so that we have work programs, rehabilitation programs and things like that. I feel when somebody gives a beggar anything, both the beggar and that person are dehumanized. Because you are not moving that person out of poverty. My take is that real help is help that leaves the person in a better position than before. There is a magazine, I'm sure you have it in your country, called the
Big Issue.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Now, I gave a free workshop over 2 months to women who are selling the big issue. And out of those women, I've identified 2. One failed matric, one left matric in June and didn't write exams. Next year, I'm sending them back to school because I'm selling this not in the street. I have asked friends to order so that those 2 women can go back to school, and the money they got from the big issue, I will give them by selling their big issue for them.
Wow.
Because I know when they get matric, high school, they can then go and train to be social workers or teachers. That is help that moves people from poverty, not me giving them 100 rand. That is nothing. But if I can sell, and I sold 50 this, you know, and I'm just going to do that every month. I'll take the magazines they were going to sell and sell them for them. It's not out of my pocket. Next year, I have a young woman. I saw her grade when she completed matric. She had not applied anywhere. I helped her get into university. I helped her get a scholarship. I helped her get a sponsor so she wouldn't have to sell her body to eat. Next year, in April, she graduates. That's the kind of help I'm talking about. Help that really moves a person so that they are no longer poor. To get out of poverty.
You have certainly given us a bit of hope on this very, very hopeless day.
Yeah.
I think that you certainly on so many levels you make a difference with your writing and with your actions. And I think for today we might have to call it a day and end the interview, although I personally would want to continue for 3 more hours. But I think at this point, let's say...
And thank you for your patience and persistence.
Yeah, we both, all of us.
It was so interesting.
I told you from the word go, I'm not a cat person.
I think it's so...
This was a major challenge for me, but I'm glad you stayed with me until we got it right.
Yeah, you have done an awesome job. That was wonderful, and I think maybe, I personally think maybe one of the best experiences our students could have during all of their school life, to be able to talk to an inspiring author like you, and an inspiring person.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And stay in school and finish school and do great things.
We